Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Meher Sher and these are the headlines. Israel's parliament has dissolved after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's fractured ruling coalition failed to pass a budget. This triggers the fourth election in 2 years and renews an unprecedented political crisis. Pakistan has summoned a senior Indian diplomat to register protest over a ceasefire breach along the line of control. In a statement, the Foreign Office says a civilian was martyred and 3 others injured in the Hot Spring and Jandrot sectors. It says Indian forces have killed 28 civilians in over 3,000 ceasefire violations this year alone. In India, former Congress President Rahul Gandhi will lead a protest march in Delhi tomorrow to show solidarity with the protesting farmers. He will submit a memorandum with 20 million signatures condemning the reforms to President Ram Nath Kovind. Farmers have camped on the outskirts of Delhi for 28 days now, demanding the repeal of contentious laws. U.S. President Donald Trump has rejected the $892 billion coronavirus relief bill. In a video message, Trump called the package a disgrace and demanded the removal of wasteful items. If the president vetoes the legislation, the U.S. government could shut down on December 29th, as a $1.4 trillion federal spending measure is attached to the bill. The U.S. has surpassed 322,000 coronavirus deaths and 18 million cases. The virus has also reached the Antarctic continent after the Chilean army reported 36 cases at its research station. Meanwhile, Pakistan has reported 2,100 infections and 84 fatalities overnight. The nationwide death toll has risen to 9,557. Globally, the virus has claimed 1.7 million lives and infected 78 million people. And in football, Manchester City downed Arsenal 4-1 to reach the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup. City's stellar performance at Emirates Stadium turfed the Gunners out of the competition. They are set to face Brentford in the semi-final, who edged Newcastle 1-0 in their quarter-final contest. Well, those were the headlines. More news in detail after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. And now for the news in more detail. Israel's parliament has dissolved after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's fractured ruling coalition failed to pass a budget. This triggers the fourth election in 2 years and renews an unprecedented political crisis. The Knesset voted against an attempt by Netanyahu to delay a midnight deadline to approve the 2020 budget. Polls were automatically called for 90 days from now, namely March 23rd, though it could be changed by vote. His coalition partner Benny Gantz wrote on Twitter that Netanyahu is taking Israel to an election to avoid the courtroom. Netanyahu and Gantz established a unity government in May after 3 inconclusive elections since April 2019. And the U.S., Morocco, and Israel have signed a tripartite declaration cementing the Washington-sponsored normalization of ties. Moroccan Foreign Minister Nasser Bourita said King Mohammed VI met a U.S.-Israeli delegation in Rabat.
The joint delegation was led by senior White House advisor Jared Kushner. Burita said that the parties agreed to establish mutual communication offices within 2 weeks. He said that the agreement stipulates that parties fulfill their obligations and take other steps before the end of January. Israel and Morocco have also signed 4 bilateral agreements. These include deals on direct air links, water management, connecting financial systems, and a visa-waiving agreement for diplomats. In a statement, King Mohammed said Morocco will remain an advocate for the Palestinians. He reiterated Morocco's commitment to the Palestinian cause, based on the two-state solution to the conflict. Meanwhile, Tunisia says that it is not interested in establishing diplomatic relations with Israel. In a statement, the foreign ministry said Tunisia's position will not be affected by any international changes.
The U.S. says it is ready to mediate the maritime negotiations between Israel and Lebanon. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says Washington can facilitate the talks over offshore oil and gas exploration. In a statement, Pompeo regretted that despite goodwill on both sides, the parties remain far apart. He urged both sides to negotiate based on the respective maritime claims they have deposited at the UN. And moving on, Pakistan has summoned a senior Indian diplomat to register protest over a ceasefire breach along the line of control. In a statement, the Foreign Office says a civilian was martyred and 3 others injured in the Hot Spring and Jandro sectors. The Foreign Office strongly condemned the deplorable targeting of civilians. It said the violations are against established humanitarian norms and military conduct. The office added that India's increasing breaches along the LOC are a threat to regional peace. It said Indian forces have killed 28 civilians in over 3,000 ceasefire violations this year alone. And in India, former Congress President Rahul Gandhi will lead a protest march in Delhi tomorrow in solidarity with the protesting farmers. Farmers have camped on the outskirts of Delhi for 28 days now, demanding the repeal of contentious laws. Gandhi will submit a memorandum with 20 million signatures condemning the reforms to President Ramnath Kovind. Meanwhile, speaking at the venue of an anti-farm law protest in Thiruvananthapuram, the Kerala Chief Minister said, "Farmers are food providers and the central government is not respecting them." In another development, farm leaders are meeting to discuss the government's proposal for more talks. And Iran has once again ruled out the possibility of renegotiating the 2015 nuclear deal. Speaking at the UN Security Council, Iran's envoy Majid Takhtravanchi said a revision is absolutely unacceptable to Tehran. He said any such amendment or extension of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action will violate Security Council Resolution 2231. The envoy added that 4 months after the U.S. failed to destroy JCPOA, the Council is again considering its implementation. Ravanchi said the deal was concluded as a comprehensive and long-term solution to the Iranian nuclear issue. Earlier, the EU urged Iran not to squander an opportunity to return to the deal under the next U.S. administration. Moving on, Ankara has approved a law to extend the deployment of Turkish troops in Libya by 18 months. It renews Ankara's 1-year mandate of a military agreement with Libya's government of national accord. Turkish media said opposition parties voted against the extension, but the combined votes of Turkey's ruling party and its allies allowed the bill to pass. This comes in the wake of a UN-brokered ceasefire agreement between the warring parties in October. The deal stipulated the departure of foreign forces and mercenaries stationed in Libya in 3 months. Also, Turkey has issued another navigational telex to conduct seismic research in the eastern Mediterranean Sea. Ankara says the Oruç Reis seismic research vessel will carry out the mission until June 15, 2021. It said the vessel will conduct geological, geophysical, hydrographic, and oceanographic surveys. It said Oruç Reis will be accompanied by 2 military vessels. Ankara sent the ship on an exploratory mission in August in the waters also claimed by Greece. However, it returned to the southern port of Antalya on the 29th of November. Turkey has urged the U.S. to review sanctions on Ankara over the purchase of Russian S-400 defense system. Defense Minister Hulusi Akar said Ankara bought the missile systems to bolster security and in line with its national interests. He said Russia responded positively to Turkey's request and Ankara made its military, economic and technological plans in accordance. He said inspection and controls of the S-400 system are underway based on the activity plan set by Ankara and Moscow. He said the sanctions do not benefit the ties of the NATO allies. The U.S. has imposed sanctions on Turkey, alleging that the deployment of S-400 is incompatible with NATO technology. And U.S. President Donald Trump has rejected the $892 billion coronavirus relief bill. In a video message, Trump called the package a disgrace and demanded the removal of wasteful items.
Trump has asked the Congress to increase stimulus payments to most Americans from $600 to $2,000. Slamming the bill, he said that it had nothing to do with the COVID relief. Trump's statement has plunged the bill, approved by Congress after days of furious negotiations, into turmoil.
The bill they are now planning to send back to my desk is much different than anticipated. It really is a disgrace. For example, among the more than 5,000 pages in this bill, which nobody in Congress has read because of its length and complexity, it's called the COVID relief bill, but it has almost nothing to do with COVID.
Failure to pass another stoppage bill or override a possible Trump veto could result in a partial government lockdown on the 29th of December, as a $1.4 trillion federal spending measure is attached to the bill.
The U.S. has surpassed 322,000 coronavirus deaths and 18 million cases. The virus has also reached the Antarctic continent after the Chilean army reported 36 cases at its research station. Globally, the virus has claimed 1.7 million lives and infected 78 million people. More on coronavirus in the following report.
The surging cases of COVID-19 in the U.S. have essentially put the country under a siege as hospitals remain overwhelmed. Pfizer is close to striking another deal with Washington to supply tens of millions of additional doses of its vaccine. Meanwhile, as the virus reaches the end of the Earth in the Antarctic, scientists believe extreme weather conditions can further affect immune systems.
We know that exposure of extreme weather affects a person's physiology. The condition of isolation, the changes in seasonal light with the seasonal sensitivity can also be immunosuppressive. So, we know that several components may further affect the person to lower their immune system in extreme conditions, and especially with the work they do there.
Moderna, AstraZeneca, and Germany's CureVac all claim that their vaccines will be effective against the new strain raging in Britain, while BioNTech is testing the effectiveness of its vaccine against the variant as it prepares to send 12.5 million doses to EU by the end of the year. Meanwhile, France has agreed to open borders with Britain provided that travelers show a recent negative COVID-19 test. Over in Australia, after the second day of low cases in South New Wales, the state has relaxed restrictions for Christmas.
Can I be very clear that whatever we have in place today goes back on the 27th, and in between they're very modest tweaks and modest changes to account for the fact that everybody has had a very difficult year. Some people's stress levels and mental health capacity is already at breaking point, and we want to try and put that against the current risks as we see them.
South Korea has reported its second highest daily tally of infections. A survey shows growing public dissatisfaction with Seoul's handling of the latest wave.
Moving on to Pakistan, 84 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. This takes the country's death toll to 9,557. The health ministry says 2,142 people tested positive for the virus overnight. It added there are nearly 38,000 active cases in the country. Out of nearly 463,000 countrywide cases, more than 415,000 people have recovered. The ministry said the southern province of Sindh has the highest number of cases with over 206,000 infections. The province of Punjab has reported more than 133,000 cases, whereas in the capital city of Islamabad, over 36,000 people have been infected so far. And we'll be back with more news after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. And now moving on, Russia has sent 300 military instructors to the Central African Republic. Moscow said they will train military personnel of the National Army under an existing agreement. In a statement, the Russian Foreign Ministry expressed concerns over the deteriorating security situation in the Central African Republic. Bangui sought military assistance from Russia and Rwanda ahead of nationwide elections. Rwandan President Paul Kagame also confirmed the deployment of troops without giving numbers. This could bolster security forces and UN peacekeepers against an alliance of armed rebel groups threatening to march on the capital. The rebels have already seized the country's fourth largest city, Bambari, 5 days before the polls. And 2 Russian diplomats accused of engaging in espionage have left Colombia. The South American nation says the officials cannot return. Colombian authorities have not explained why the men left, but only said that they violated the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. Earlier, media reports said the men were tasked with obtaining military intelligence and information about the energy industry. Colombia's Foreign Minister Claudia Blum said the procedure followed was per Article 9 of the convention. He said Moscow had removed 2 Colombian diplomats in response. Moving on, in central France, 3 police officers were shot dead and another wounded while responding to a domestic violence call. Police say a man opened fire at the cops when they arrived at a house in Saint-Just village. Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin said on Twitter the suspected gunman has been found dead. A woman who was the reported victim of the domestic violence was rescued by police. French officials made no mention of the suspected gunman's possible motive. President Emmanuel Macron expressed solidarity with France's police force following the deaths. Moving on, the U.S. Justice Department has sued Walmart on accusations of fueling the opioid crisis in the country. The retailer's shares closed down 1.2% following a lawsuit filed in Delaware District Court. The civil lawsuit accuses Walmart of ignoring warning signs from its pharmacists and filling thousands of invalid prescriptions. It alleges the retail giant of failing to take its gatekeeping duties as a pharmacy seriously. Walmart denies the allegations and says the Justice Department's probe is tainted by historical ethical violations. In a statement, the retail giant says the lawsuit is riddled with factual inaccuracies. It calls the lawsuit an attempt to shift blame from the Drug Enforcement Administration's failures. Now, over 6 climbers from countries including Nepal, the U.S., and Spain have arrived in Pakistan for K2's winter expedition. Of the 14 mountains that rise to at least 8,000 meters, K2 is the only one unclimbed during winter due to its high winds and icy slopes.
The climbers from different countries will make all-out efforts to claim one of the last remaining great prizes in mountaineering. During winters, avalanches are an ever-present risk, with temperatures falling to -65 Celsius and winds blowing with the power of cyclones. K2 has earned the nickname of Killer Mountain for the large number of mountaineers who have lost their lives climbing it. According to the National Geographic, a winter ascent has only been attempted 5 times prior to 2019. Over 300 climbers have scaled the K2 in spring and summer, but none in winter.
As Christmas approaches, baby animals at a reptile park in Australia have also embraced the festive spirit. More in this report.
Christmas arrived early for the baby koalas at a New South Wales park as they were surrounded by festive decorations. The baby marsupials were seen sequestered against each other in a playful mood.
We wanted to bring smiles to people's faces all over by showing off our beautiful little Joeys that are born this year in 2020 here at the Australian Reptile Park.
One koala, Pipsqueak, was seen enjoying a meal surrounded by tinsel, while two Tasmanian devil joys, Wolf and Elula, were spotted chomping down on a Santa hat.
Some of our beautiful little babies featured in this video are of course our tiny little boo book, our Mango, our drop dead gorgeous koala Pipsqueak, and of course the two little rascally devils, Wolf and Elua.
Although the park will stay closed on Christmas Day, a few of the keepers will be around to ensure the animals are fed and enjoying the holiday.
In Singapore, with the coronavirus disrupting holiday trips overseas, some residents have decided to pack their luggage and head to Jewel Changi Airport, where the top floor of the airport mall has been transformed into a camping site. More in this report. Staying overnight at an airport is not unheard of, especially if you missed a flight. However, some people are willingly choosing to spend the night at Singapore's Changi Airport, albeit in luxury tents that offer glamping, a portmanteau for glamorous camping.
Usually we go out of the country every holiday, but since we can't travel much and it's the school holiday, so I thought, why not do something different for the children? And I think they enjoy camping, right? They always, set up tents in our house. So I thought, okay, let's give them this experience.
To bring the holiday spirit to life, grounds covered with luxury tents have been decked out with queen-sized beds, toiletries, and festive Christmas lights. People pay up to $269 a night for the experience.
I mean, it is pretty pricey. When I told my husband, he was like, we could have paid for a hotel, which we did. We went for a staycation. But I told him I think it's more for the kids, not really for us. It's an experience for them and it's something different. So I said it's okay. Anyway, the money, instead of going overseas, we just spend it in Singapore.
Since no campfires are allowed, the glampers get to wake up to the gushing sounds of the mall's indoor waterfall, along with an added perk of shopping discounts. While there are many happy campers, some people are hesitant if the demand will even remain once the pandemic has passed. And now on to business. The World Bank has warned China to avoid a premature exit from its economic support policies. In a report, the bank cited concerns of a precarious global outlook next year. The bank urged the People's Bank of China to be cautious in tightening its monetary policy. The agency said China should maintain an accommodative policy to help recover from the pandemic. It forecasts China's gross domestic product growth will slow to 2% this year, down from 6.1% in 2019. But it said the GDP will accelerate to 7.9% in 2021. The report predicts that exports will not contribute to growth next year after a large increase in 2020. And most European markets are trading higher amid hopes of a post-Brexit trade deal soon. The Pan-European Stock 600 index is up 0.5%, with auto stocks leading the gains. Frankfurt's DAX and Italy's FTSE MIB have also gained 0.5% each, whereas the CAC 40 in Paris has risen as well. However, London's FTSE is bucking the trend as uncertainty over the new virus strain continues to rise. Earlier, stocks in the Asia-Pacific were trading higher despite U.S. President Donald Trump's rejection of a relief package. And now it's time for sports. Barcelona have hammered Real Valladolid 3-0 in their La Liga encounter. Lionel Messi scored his 644th goal to surpass Pelé as the all-time record scorer for a single club. French Clement Lenglet drove Barca into the lead in the 21st minute with Messi's first assist of the season. Martin Braithwaite capitalized on Barca's lead in the 35th minute, followed by Messi scoring the third to seal the team's win. Barca are fifth in the Spanish league table with 24 points. In another fixture, Atletico Madrid beat Real Sociedad 2-0 to move 3 points clear atop the league with 32 points. And also in football, Manchester City downed Arsenal 4-1 to reach the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup. City's stellar performance at Emirates Stadium turfed the Gunners out of the competition. Gabriel Jesus, Riyad Mahrez, Phil Foden and Aymeric Laporte netted one each to seal City's win. They are set to face Brentford in the semi-final, who edged Newcastle 1-0 in their quarter-final contest. The Bees dominated the Magpies throughout the match, while Josh Da Silva's crisp left-foot volley secured their spot in the last four. Brentford have reached a major semi-final for the first time. And now it's time to take a look at the latest weather updates from around the world. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.